I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Has Council had the opportunity to review the meeting minutes from July 5th? If so, I will ask for a motion.
Make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion from Robin, second from Rick. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Any changes to this evening's agenda? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the set agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second. Motion from Mike, second from Becky. Those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Guests in open forum. Seeing no one for guests in open forum, we will move right into committee reports. EDA.
EDA, we met last Monday, July 10th. We had a monthly marketing report from Andy, as we usually do. And then mostly just updates and discussions. We talked a little bit about business visits, said a significant amount of discussion on, there was a group called First Children's Finance. It has to do with a rural child, there's a rural child care program. I believe the money's coming from the state, and so there was discussion on interest and, I don't know, just discussion, I guess. Also had more discussion on the business incubation project that was presented on briefly the month before. That was about it for EDA.
All right. Personnel Committee met last week. We received recruitment updates in various departments. Job description updates is on our consent agenda, as well as the clarification of the PTO time, of the timeframes that are being set up. That is on our consent agenda. And then legislative updates that are upcoming, like the paid family medical leave that'll happen in 2026. Different things. We're just kind of keeping a radar on any future. Fire Board, we met last evening. We discussed the 2024 budget and CIP, and then that rolled into the joint powers agreement of the two entities meeting last evening at 8 p.m. And we approved and set the 2024 budget and CIP at that meeting. How about Park and Rec?
Didn't meet.
You didn't meet. All right. Anything else? All right. We are going to move into board, committee, and consultant reports then. Community Park Pickleball Court Resurfacing. Mr. Kua.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity tonight. So the topic for this evening is Community Park, next to the Community Center, the Pickleball Court Resurfacing Project. So you might recall in June of 2021, as part of a parks build out for Community Park, we added the splash pad, the pickleball courts, and a full court basketball court to that property. So at that time, we were faced with a decision on how to surface best the pickleball courts, and that's specifically what we're talking about tonight. So there were two different avenues to pursue with that. The first is the more traditional, kind of like a tennis court, surfacing an acrylic overlay. And the secondary was a new product that came out from Minnesota Sport Court. It's a pickleball specific sport court, and that was a new product at that time. So they had a seed program, which reduced the square foot cost from $7 a square foot down to $3.54. So as we were weighing the pros and cons of the two different surfaces, it was very clear, being financially responsible and the 15-year warranty on the pickleball modular court, the sport court, that it was, one, cheaper to do initially, but you'd have a 15-year warranty with it where you wouldn't have to do any maintenance to the product. And it was also endorsed by the USA Pickleball Association and the Professional Pickleball Association. So it had some really good endorsements, but it was a new product. So getting real-time feedback was difficult to do. So for the being responsible to the budget and the wear and tear of it, we did choose to pursue the modular sport court. So this winter, I received some feedback from some people in our pickleball community, some of our high-level players that are really passionate about it, kind of expressing their concern with the surfacing in the modular fashion. So I said I absolutely appreciate the feedback. I wanted to kind of see it with my own eyes. So this spring, I met with a team of pickleball players, and we actually went out to the community park pickleball courts. At that time, I could kind of see the way the ball reacted. It meets all the specs as far as when you drop a ball from a certain height, there's a range that it should recoil. So it met all of those standards, but what we were able to identify and what they explained is some of the skip characteristics when the ball was coming down. It doesn't generally bounce up very high, but it would actually gain speed and stay at a lower level that made returning really hard hit, good shots more difficult than it should have. So we then went over to the school where there's pickleball courts that have been fashioned out of their tennis courts and kind of got to see those same shots and how the ball reacted. So having that opportunity to go through that with those pickleball players definitely came to the conclusion that the bounce characteristics were not ideal with the modular sport court. So I'm here in front of you tonight after meeting with Parks and Rec Commission and kind of pursuing the different avenues, looking at pulling up that modular sport court. We've got a nice new concrete base below it, and then refinishing it with this pickleball specific acrylic overlay, which is being presented from Sport Court MN. They're out of, let's see, I gotta get the name of Surface Pro. So they are out of Anoka, and they finish pickleball courts to the highest standards for that association and use the best products. So what I am looking for tonight is, one, to answer any questions that you have, and then getting into the budgetary impact. So the cost of the resurfacing is $15,000, and we would need to budget that every 5 to 7 years to completely resurface the pickleball courts. There'd be some minor crack filling in those interim years. So we talked with Budget and Finance, and we would look to recognize this on the 2024 CIP, but take on the project now should it advance through council. So those are some of the reasons that we did initially go for the modular sport court, is because of that $12,000 expense could cover 15 years, whereas with the acrylic, you're looking at $15,000 expense every 5 to 7 years. But I believe, and the feedback from the pickleball community is, we want the courts to get used. It's a really nice location. The nets are great, the windscreens, the fencing, everything is really, really good and well received. It's just the surface that it comes down to. So looking to pivot on that and see what you guys would have to say about potentially pulling that up. I will say that I did reach out to the sport court manufacturer and the representative. He said there's only been a couple instances where they've had to pull it up in different projects nationwide, and they're both on residential. He was empathetic to the situation. One of the offerings he made, is he had talked to his corporate office too, is to offer to pick up the court, warehouse it, and then sell it on consignment should they find a buyer for it. The pricing that they had offered to do the work of reclaiming it is more than we would probably pay, so we'd look to our internal departments to do that work, stack it, and then we're working through to see if we did house it and we found a buyer through them, what kind of percentage on consignment sale we might achieve. Another option is there is enough neutral unlined tile that we could do a half court basketball surface on one of our parks. One that we could identify would be Pleasant Valley as well. So a few different options, but the most important thing is trying to get that product and that experience to the level that we would expect from it. So with that, I'd be looking for a motion and a second to allow staff to engage Surface Pro MN to resurface the pickleball courts at Community Park at the quoted amount of $15,000. And I'd stand for any questions.
Josh, is the surfacing that we have currently for the pickleball, in your RCAAC, it says the feedback from the high-level pickleball players is what we're moving on. Are the courts not used by anybody but the professional pickleball players?
You know, anecdotally, just from passing by and kind of keeping an eye on that property, it does get used sporadically, not as much as we would anticipate. I know there is a group that organizes games and leagues, and I wouldn't necessarily classify them as high-level pickleball players, but more so people that are just getting into the game, and they do meet and they play at the school because of the surfacing.
So is it just, we would compete with the school's location if we redid the surfacing?
Correct. I would anticipate that the school has the surface that the ball responds to very well, but it also doesn't have any wind screens. And if the ball advances through the court past the player, it goes a great distance before it gets to the fence, where ours is more enclosed. So playability, the community park pickleball courts would be more desirable than playing at the school, just because of the confines of the space and the wind and things like that.
Yeah, I had shared this feedback before, but I first heard about this several months ago, and I in talking with I'm not a avid pickleball player, but just talking with folks, and they said they were going to Monticello or I remember where they said they were going. I'm like, well, you got pickleball courts here in town, and they're brand new. Why don't you use them? And it was talking with this individual, and then I started asking others, and it's pretty much a universal consensus that they're not playable for and I think you said very specifically the bounce or the spin, when you do spins on it, which is, you know, like if you ever play tennis or pickleball, I mean, that is one of the aspects of the game, and if it's taking a weird hop, it just gets, people don't wanna play them regardless. So we have these courts there, we have these, you know, like you said, the concrete underlay, we got the fence, we got a lot of money into it, and the reputation is that they're junk. So, and it's totally understandable, you know, if we're not avid pickleball players, you know, when you get these, you know, US Pickleball Association and groups like that to endorse it, you know, I mean, if you're not, that's what you look for. That was there. I mean, it's, you know, understandable that we would go that route. But, I mean, we have to, it's gonna sit there and not get used near as much, I guess. So, and the fact that we can, you know, it's modular, we can pick these pieces up and redeploy them if we want to, or like I said, we can sell them or whatever. I mean, it's unfortunate, but you know, it is what it is, I guess. Are we sure, so this new surface here, are we sure that this surface is the real deal?
Yes, yep. Yeah, the references and the different facilities that they've done the surfacing for is widespread throughout the state. The newest of pickleball courts, Wade Park, all the really good examples that you see of larger complexes. This is the product and the group that does it.
Well, I'll make a motion to allow for staff to engage Surface Pro Minnesota to resurface the pickleball courts at the community park. Quoted amount of $15,000.
One second.
Motion from Robin, second from Rick. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Administrator and staff reports. Supplemental letter agreement with SEH for 97th Street construction phase services. Mr. Knutson.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. In front of you tonight, we're at the final phase of 97th Street. That project did get underway. Again, 97th Street, it's the northern portion of the town right before the bridge off of County Road 23. So our section of that road is County Road 23 to Autumn Ridge Road. But the whole thing is getting worked in a joint project with Clear Lake Township and Becker Township. So as we've gotten to this point, we've purposely held out our construction phase services with SEH for this project. We don't like to lump them all together. It gets a little convoluted, especially with this project. We've had several visits along the way, and with the grant funding that was appropriated to this project as well. So what this supplemental letter does, it works outside of our master agreement with SEH for our engineering services, And now that the bid has been awarded and out there, we have representatives on site. They do all of the staking work, the survey work on site, and the inspection services for the project, just to make sure that what was bid and the standards that have been set forth are actually abided by in the contract. So pretty standard that we've used on all the projects to this point. So it's just something that, and this one, we broke it apart for construction phase. We did the design phase ahead of the project. So we're here tonight looking for this. The total on this contract price is $163,700. We do believe there's going to be some economy of scale. This is a price not to exceed. We do have three, actually technically four other projects. This will be the fifth project that's running in parallel, and we're trying to leverage our RPR that's going to be on site. Sometimes we'll call in an assistant as needed if multiple crews are working on all the other projects. But with that, all of these running in, we don't think that we're going to hit the high side on this number. These bids or quotes come through as if this is a freestanding project, if it was running on its own. But since we're running all of these in conjunction with one another, Jerry Siegfried does a really good job for the city as our inspector out there, and kind of coordinating the construction site. So we think we're going to come underneath this, but we won't see that until the project wrap up. So tonight we're looking to move forward with this, get your approval on this as a number not to exceed.
Remind me, is SCH doing the whole 97th Street, or is it just our portion?
Just our portion, they're contracted with that. The lead agency is actually Bogart Peterson, and they are, Pedersen, sorry, they are for Becker Township. They're overseeing that. I'll say that a little bit loosely because our engineer team, SCH, and Randy Sabart is here. They have run in tandem and really kind of co-led this project. So, but we are responsible just for the city portion. So this is for that portion of that. Even though the design standards are all tied to one project, we are working on our section of the road.
Make a motion to adopt resolution 2378 approving the SLA with SCH for the 97th Street construction project.
I'll second that.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chapter 4 Amendment, State Plumbing Code Review. Mr. Sanders.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. For you tonight, we have a Chapter 4 ordinance amendment. We, just so you know, we also have Andy Schrader here from Rum River, who would be providing the services for what we're talking about, and also our building official, Mark Lucht, to answer any questions as well. So what we're proposing tonight is to amend this Chapter 4 as all commercial, public, industrial plumbing permits require state review by the Department of Labor and Industry. And their current wait time for some of these, at the time, we're at 10 weeks. It's expected probably even more now, 13 weeks, 12 weeks. It just varies, but 10 and up. And again, due to some of the staffing shortages at the state, it's expected to increase even more. So Rum River Consultants recently received approval from the state delegation to review these types of plumbing plans. That would save a lot of these owners, a lot of the businesses, a lot of the contractors' time and money, and it would really reduce it to a few weeks rather than 10 weeks or more. So it's a big benefit. So the language that's been inserted into Chapter 4, again, was provided by Rum River. They've done this in several other communities, so the language has been fits. There are a few exceptions to the plumbing permit review. Any state licensed facilities, those still have to go through the state itself as required by statute. And any public buildings defined by the statute would require that now. That doesn't include all public buildings, but many of the schools, things of that nature that are state run, state licensed or state paid for facilities, things of that nature. Additionally, as you'll see later, in the next item on the agenda is a fee schedule call for a public hearing, because we would need to amend the fee schedule to provide for the fees that would need to be paid to Rum River to do this. So with that, we're seeking to, the applicant fees too, just so you know, again, would cover those services by Rum River. So we're seeking for a motion and a second approving ordinance second series, 271 second series, revising 4.01 of City of Becker Code, and a motion and a second approving the second series summary for publication. And with that, I'll answer any questions. Or Andy or Mark can answer any questions as well.
What's the difference in you said the fee will cover it, but what's the difference between what we would charge to go this route versus what the state would charge?
I think it's based on the state unit fees, correct, Andy? Yeah.
There's no change in the amount of fees.
Okay, so the end user won't see a difference in, it's not 20% more or anything to go this route? Okay.
Based on the fixture units that they're using in the building.
So the fee part of it is, we currently don't have any fees in our ordinance?
We have fees for a lot of the building permit stuff, but for this in particular, we need it based on what the state does at the state level for their review. That's what Andy was referencing just barely. So we need to insert that into our fee schedule to allow for that.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 271 second series, revising section 4.01 of the Becker City Code.
I'll second that.
Motion from Robin, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 271 second series for publication.
I'll second that also.
Motion from Robin, second from Mike. Those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Call for a public hearing for consideration of changes to the city fee schedule. Mr. Sanders.
Yes, so as mentioned, this would be a call for a public hearing to insert those fees into the city's fee schedule. Again, based on what the Department of Labor charges as well. So with that, we're just seeking for a motion a second to call for a public hearing. As a reminder, just for those in the public hearings are required for fee schedule changes. So that would be on August 2nd, at the August 2nd City Council meeting about 5 p.m.
Just a kind of point of clarification on this.
Yes.
When we put our wording in there, can we say it to match state statute or whatever, or match the state fee as opposed to actually putting in a hard number, so that way if they change it every year, we don't have to come back and amend it every year?
Yeah, I think we can do that.
I believe that council meeting will be on the 3rd, won't it?
Yes, it will.
Or the 3rd, excuse me, you're right, correct? And I knew it was on Wednesday, but I put the 2nd, so.
Oh, it is actually Wednesday the
Next to
2nd.
unite.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is correct.
Well, I was
actually.
right, okay, thank you, I'll take it. So, it's better than being wrong.
Robin will be here at the meeting on the 3rd.
Yep.
By myself. I'm good with that. Okay, I'll make a motion to call for public hearing on August 2nd at 5 p.m. to consider changes to Chapter 2, Section 2.19, addressing the city fee schedule.
A second.
Motion from Robin, second from Rick. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
City-owned house, the 212 acres discussion. Mr. Sanders.
Yes, so thank you, Mayor, Council. We had brought this before at an executive session and talked about this, and at the direction of council, we obtained some quotes to do the work. Went out to 4 various companies. A lot of them that do this type of work are typically your excavation demolition contractors. But when we went out, we did include house move as an option, and if they were going to, that they would need to put that in their bid. So we received 3 bids back. They were all local, and they were mostly for demolition. So one did include, and this is the one that we're referencing here, did include a $2,000 reduction for moving the upper floor of the home. And that was submitted by Westing Plumbing and Heating, and I know he's here this evening. I don't see any of the other 2 that had submitted quotes. The options that you have in this are to accept that as a little bit. It would be a cost of $10,550. Again, that includes a $2,000 reduction. That would include if there's any need for abandoning of any wells on the property, the septic, removal of all the materials, the upper floor, and reseeding, and at least trying to match what was used to be existing grade, and then reseeding on top of that. So there's two options. It would increase the land value of the sale. That's the big thing for resale because we're getting rid of a structure that's causing some unpleasant things on that site. So with that, we're seeking one, a motion and a second to adopt the resolution 2379 to enter into a contract, or the other motion and second would be just a motion to allow the fire department and Sherburne County sheriffs to use it for training purposes. If that option is selected, the second one, you would still need to have somebody come in to remove the materials. So there would still be cost to that.
Probably costs just as much, if not more.
So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Has the fire department expressed interest in using it for,
Yeah.
how serious are they?
Well, I think originally they weren't, but now that the asbestos is out of the building, they're fairly interested in wanting to pursue burning it. And the county, again, has expressed interest in using it for training as well, the sheriff's department. They don't often get buildings that come up that they can use for those training purposes, so. But the asbestos was a big part of that.
What does the sheriff's office do for, I mean, does it involve destruction or is it just more of tactical?
I think it's a lot of tactical training versus, and then the fire department obviously is the burn, but yeah, tactical.
Would there be, should we choose to sell it, is there any reason the sheriff's office couldn't do their tactical and then, I mean, if they're not gonna destroy things, if it's.
I mean, there's that option too. I don't think that would necessarily affect any sort of removal of the house. You'd let them do it first and then, so yeah, that is an option you can pursue.
I don't know, that kind of makes sense. If, we would have to know what they're gonna do. I mean, if they're gonna,
Right, so I think from the standpoint of not affecting the upper structure, if that's involved in the cost and ensuring that it's maintained, a lot of what is in the upper structure is the structural pieces, really the bones of the building. I think that's where the value lies in the wood and some of the materials there. Greg, did you have?
I was gonna say, when I spoke with the county, I told them they needed to come and present a plan to the council on what their activities were gonna be there before doing it. Haven't heard anything since then. So, and also the ability to use it will depend on the contractor. If you say we're moving the building and he wants to do it next week, well, there's no training, it's just gone, so. Well, it would
well, if you
be,
told them to show up and they didn't show up, then I guess
we would give them the window based on
I
what the
would write it
contractor
off
tells
then.
us.
and just go with removing the building.
Yeah, I'm more in favor of moving the building if somebody would like to repurpose it for another reason. I would prefer to go that route than
Yep, me too.
destruction.
Yep.
Did you, so I guess the clarification will be if you need us, if you would like to amend that number one to include, and obviously as Greg stated, we would do the window, but to allow the sheriff's department to present and potentially use.
I was thinking, my thoughts on it, if they're not here and they're not.
They're not here.
They could work directly with
Yep.
Mr. Westeen, if that's something they want, if that's something he wanted to pursue. I would be a little leery if I were buying the building, if you're saying, well, before you buy it, we're gonna do
Yeah.
somebody's gonna get thrown through a wall, but they won't touch any 2x4s, that's, make me a
No,
little.
that's
leery.
fair. I just want to make sure that, so your motion number one then would be accurate.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, if he's here, he's ready to go, $2,000 off, I'd say let's go for it.
Is that a motion?
Yes, that is the motion.
I'll second.
Motion from-
2379.
Thank you.
Yeah, 2379, resolution 2379.
Motion from Mike, second from Rick. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Consent agenda, Mr. LaRude.
Mayor Bertram and city council members, items for approval on tonight's consent agenda include the hiring and termination reports for Pebble Creek Golf Course and the Becker Community Center. Adopt resolution 23-77 approving project 4 easement agreement with Gary and Chris Hammer. Adopt resolution 23-76 approving personnel policy updates. Approve job description updates for the community development director and administrative technician positions. Approve job description updates for the maintenance coordinator position and authorize to advertise for the opening. Adopt Resolution 23-80 calling for a public hearing for easement vacations and Energy Park 5th Edition. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion from Robin, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, carried. Payment of the bills.
Motion to pay the bills?
Second?
Motion from Rick, second from Robin. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Does council have anything else for the betterment of Becker? If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second?
Motion from Mike, second from Rick. Those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 5:30 PM.